good, YouTube? It's your boy 2K the God here. I'm gonna go ahead and make these next few videos short and sweet. We had a lot of fights that happened today. I'm gonna try to tackle them all. If I don't, it is what it is. Shit, fuck it. We're gonna get the important ones out the way. So we're gonna start with Jermell Charlo defending his WBC 154-pound title against Charles Hatley. Oh shit. Now let me just say this. I didn't do a prediction video on it, you know what I mean? But I talked about it in other videos prior. I said Jermell Charlo should have no problem in this fight. And that includes him having a problem in his last fight versus Julian Jackson's son, John Jackson, right? I mean, he was losing that fight, the whole goddamn fight, until he landed a nice lucky punch and got the knockout, right? John Jackson later came out and said, well, he got poked in the eye, that's what happened. But nevertheless, he got the lucky punch, he got the knockout, but he was looking bad the whole fight. Even though that shit went down, I was still telling y'all in that previous video that Charles Hatley has no motherfucking chance in this fight, fam. And it's because he's still an amateur. He still fights like an amateur. Real talk, yo. You know, I live in Dallas. Niggas don't even talk about Charles Hatley out here like that. You know, he's well known out in Oak Cliff, which is South Dallas, Pleasant Grove. It's the hood. You know what I'm saying? He's known out there. But when we talk about Dallas as a whole, the niggas coming out of here is Errol Spence. You know what I'm saying? They're not really talking about Charles Hatley. Shit, I hear more when I'm talking to cats from local gyms and shit. I'm hearing more about Maurice Hooker than I'm hearing about fucking Charles Hatley. You know what I'm saying? So, and this is a testament, dog. If you know what you're looking at in the ring, right, and you watch tonight's fight, it's clear that Charles Hatley still does amateurish things, and I'll break them down. Number one, he doesn't even know how to throw a punch properly, right? He don't really turn his punches. He don't turn his wrist with his punches, right? Number two, when he throws a punch, he doesn't bring his hands back in a defensive motion. He may do it in the beginning, but when he gets caught in the heat of the moment, he completely forgets about defense. It's like the shit don't exist no more. He's still trying to get his. Perfect example of what I'm trying to say in that scenario, before he got knocked out, which all in itself was a huge amateur fucking mistake, the nigga throws a hook, right? But then he stays in this position like this, doesn't come back here. He doesn't do that. Instead, he's here and then extends out. So he tried to come from finishing a hook to going into a jab. Well, in doing so, Jermell Charlo was just waiting on this motherfucker, turned his hips, game over. Now, that in itself was an amateurish mistake. You throw a hook, man, you miss, you gotta reset yourself immediately. It's exactly what I tell my kids. That's exactly what I tell these teenagers whenever I get to work with them. You gotta reset no matter what, all right? Motherfucker didn't reset. Pure 101 basic boxing technique that we teach amateurs. The motherfucker was completely squared up in that exchange, meaning his feet were literally parallel to one another. He didn't have his left foot in front of his right. Motherfucker standing there like in a box trying to square off or tee off with Jermell Charlo. Now, Jermell Charlo's not a big puncher. You know what I'm saying? So maybe that's why he felt he could do that. He wasn't fighting Jermall, the nigga that be knocking motherfuckers out with sneak counter uppercuts and shit. He wasn't fighting him. He was fighting the other one that's more of a technician, he's supposed to be more of a technician, but since he's left Ronnie Shields, he's been showing that he can be hit repeatedly. More of a technician, more of a defensive fighter, right? The guy that's more economical with his punches, uses his jab, boxes from the outside more, doesn't really knock cats out, uses more speed than power, doesn't really sit down on his punches, etc., etc. That's who he felt he was fighting. So I guess he felt he could make that amateur-ass mistake and square up and, you know, possibly win an exchange against Jermell Charlo, right? Wrong! And that's why, people, Charles Hatley went to sleep. Now, my thing is this, yo. Granted, Charles Hatley was like the WBC Silver or WBC Intercontinental, whatever the fuck. One of them belts I got in my motherfucking attic. You know what I'm saying? One of them WBC minor titles I got in my attic. He was one of them. He was a champion for that, right? But you got to look at who he's fought, right, to get to that status. In 2012, he lost to wily veteran Leonardo Tyner. Leonardo Tyner, as I told you in a previous video when I talked about Gervonta Tank Davis and who he's beefed with in his career, Leonardo Tyner is a guy that's never going to be a world champion, right? But he's one of those guys one of those journeymen that can give you fits as a prospect coming up, much like Emmanuel Augustus back in the day, right? The guy that gave Floyd Mayweather fits, the guy who Floyd Mayweather to this day says was his toughest fight to date. Guys like Darnell Boone, shout out to my man Darnell Boone. You know, he gave Andre Ward and Sergey Kovalev fits, and he knocked out Adonis Stevenson in their first fight. So he's one of those type of guys, Leonardo Tyner is. And when he fought Charles Hatley in 2012, an undefeated Charles Hatley, he knocked him out in the first round. Now, granted, that was at 147, but it doesn't matter. This shit still fucking happened. Charles Hatley fights the same way he did against Leonardo Tyner. He's not any better, in my opinion. Okay. After that, he goes 9-0, 8-0 against bums, C and D level fighters, right? Then he fights an old ass, washed up motherfucker that never really wasn't that good in the first place, Anthony Mundine in Australia. And I'll give it to him. He beat Anthony Mundine in his hometown, right? In Australia. But come on, dog. Like, Anthony Mundine never really was that good of a fighter. I mean, his best win was against garbage ass Daniel Gill, who came back and beat him in a rematch. You know what I'm saying? I think he beat Danny Green too, that cruiserweight that's still fucking around fighting for whatever reason. You know what I'm saying? Anthony Mundine, even though the motherfucker was on Fight Night round 3 or some shit, he's never really been a top tier fighter in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? So put that on top of the fact that he was old. He was done. And Charlo went in there, the younger fighter, and knocked him out. You know what I'm saying? He's not supposed to be in the ring with a guy like Jermell Charlo, and that's why this fight didn't really need a prediction video. It was a foregone conclusion. It had a foregone conclusion, right? We already knew who was gonna win. If you follow boxing, you already knew who was gonna fucking win. All right. So easy win for Jermell. He actually let the fight go on longer than he should have. I guess just to get a couple rounds in. You know, I'm watching the fight. You know, I'm talking to my fellas over the phone, over Messenger and shit, and we just like, yeah, you know, Jermell in there fucking with dude. You know, he gonna get him out of here pretty soon, and that's exactly what happened. That last round, ding, 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 motherfucker went right at Charles Hatley. Said, all right, got my rounds in, got my practice in, got my sparring session in. Go ahead and get this motherfucker out of here, though. I need to go to the club tonight and shit, get some bitches. Real talk. Congratulations to Jermell, man. He called out Jarrett Hurd. A lot of cats is mad and shit that he called out Jarrett Hurd. I'm not mad. The reason why I'm not mad is because Jarrett Hurd is the weakest link with a motherfucking title at 154. If I was a champion, I'd call that nigga out too. That's an easy route to become a unified champion in the division. So you got all the dogs, all the sharks calling out that trout. No pun intended. Jarrett Hurd, you know what I'm saying? As soon as that motherfucker beat Tony Harrison and got that IBF strap, that nigga was food. And we seeing that right now. Them dogs want that steak. You know what I'm saying? You got Erislandy Lara wanting them. Demetrius Andre wants them. Jermell Charlo wants them. They all want them. Somebody gonna take that belt up off Cat's shoulder. It's gonna be funny to see who it's gonna be. Alright? YouTube, do what you do in the comment section. Be real. This is real talk for real fans. 1.